All right, let's get this started. Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today is episode 92, and we're interviewing Adam W. How are you, Adam?
Doing well. It's great to meet you, Jim.
It's great to meet you also. Finally, we've been trying to schedule this for about a week now, so I'm happy to have you on the show. So, the first question I always ask everybody is let's start with your childhood. How was it growing up?
Oh, uh, well, let me answer that with a question, if you don't mind.
No, let me hear it.
Um, can you give me the purpose for that question?
Well, it's kind of just to get to know you. A lot of people, that leads into addiction, and there's a lot of things that people had happen in their childhood that might have led to this. So it's to get to know you and see what happened as a child, see if that anything had to do with addiction.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that typically you'll find that the majority of people in addiction have had a pretty shitty childhood.
Yes, yeah. I mean that's one of the reasons I asked because so many people have so much to say about it.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that trauma is the gateway drug. Um, and that, when you really get down to addiction, um, the key, I think, is understanding where the pain comes from and why the need to medicate that pain.
Have you
Um,
ever have you ever heard of Gabor Mate?
yeah, I'm a big follower of his work and the
Yeah, he's
wisdom.
he's great.
Yeah, the wisdom of trauma has been very influential in my life, as well as Peter Levine, Stephen Porges with polyvagal theory. These types of influencers and teachers have been a big part of my recovery journey. So I think it's important that when leading into discussions about recovery, that we are sensitive as far as being trauma informed, because that can be a very triggering question when you go right into how was your childhood, and sometimes people can get triggered and go into a dissociative state and not really know how to respond in a very embodied way. So, yeah, I think that when you look at my childhood, what on the surface, as far as people looking from the outside in, would see a happy, stable, healthy home. But what I think happens a lot is in what's called let's just say like a narcissistic family system, where secrets keep us sick, in the inside of the walls of the home, where there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of toxicity, and a lot of trauma. My mother was an alcoholic, and my father was not emotionally available. You know, just by being raised by his father, he was very insensitive. I would say like a stoic type person. I'm the youngest of three boys. Um, was raised in a middle class home from the West End of Richmond, with all the privilege available as a white male growing up in America. And when I was growing up, I did not feel comfortable in my own skin, as a lot of people talk about. Um, and I
Do
didn't
you
feel.
do you think did you ever contemplate and come to a reason of why you were not comfortable in your own skin?
Yeah, I think that I was just different. Um, a lot of people would identify, I have a lot of like autistic traits, um, Asperger's, maybe on the spectrum type thing. I'm not all that interested in a diagnosis. All I know is that I felt and experienced the world different than other people.
Okay.
Yeah. So being able to um, like really have a need for human connection and to feel loved and nurtured and safe is critical for a healthy attachment. And I didn't get that. I think that's probably key, a key thing for people in recovery to really understand is that generally a broad stroke, we did not have a healthy, secure attachment. And we weren't loved and nurtured and kept safe in a way where we could really express ourselves with full freedom and authenticity, with vulnerability in the full scope of the human condition. This is the type of environment that's necessary for people to thrive, to feel loved and accepted.
Yeah,
you know,
we're at the end of the day, no matter what anyone says, we are social creatures. We want to, like you said, find a group of people that we fit in with, that understand us, that care about us, that love us. That's
right.
very, very important. To be nurtured as a child is a very important thing.
Yeah. And when I didn't get that connection, I became a master at what's called masking.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
To be able to find some kind of way to fit in to society's norms, the way people perceive me, and be liked and accepted.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. That is something that I've done a lot of interviews, and a lot of us addicts, we wear that mask, especially for the family members that we don't want knowing, or maybe when we're at work, we don't want our employer knowing that we have all these issues. So we wear the mask of a good person. We have an okay life. We got our shit together. When at the end of the day, our shit's falling apart.
Yeah. And so that was absolutely critical for me when I found drugs, because drugs is what gave me that connection. Well, the connection, the openness, the freedom to really be able to navigate through life without having all the fear and the anxiety and the worry if I was fitting in. It was really, they call alcohol a social lubricant, but when I started drugs at a very early age when I was 12. My uncle introduced me to marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, LSD at a very early age. But by the time I was 18, I found out, I played baseball. I was a star in high school and got drafted out of high school, and went to college on a scholarship. Ended up losing that scholarship through partying, thinking my natural talent was going to drive me through. Lost that scholarship, came home to a mom who was 44 years old, dying of cancer. And it's very significant for me that today is Mother's Day. And she got sober in AA 2 years before she passed and had a spiritual awakening through the 12 steps and realized all of this stuff that I'm talking about. As soon as she grew that seed of awareness of what really happened in our family system and started shining a light on this, that is absolutely critical right now for where I am in ending the cycle of violence and trauma and addiction in my family. I'm talking about the generational trauma that's passed down from one addict to the next. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and my whole life is centered around healing this crap.
Do you think, because you're talking about generational trauma, I know one of the things that Gabor Mate said was that, like you said, grandparents, they suffer trauma and they transfer that to your parents. They suffer trauma, they transfer it to you. Do you think that you're transferring it to your daughter right now?
I have absolutely, no kind of like spiritual platitude that I'm healed and perfect. You know, I'm a human being and I know I make mistakes. But I think the key is that I have the awareness, you know, that I'm actually involved in like nurturing heart approach, nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg. Um, you know, we homeschool. We use wild schooling principles. We use um, unschooling principles. You know, these are things that I've been able to grasp on through my studies, through my healing process, in order to break this cycle.
So, what kind of things are you remembering as far as, well, let me go back to school. How was school for you? Because I know you said that you might be on the spectrum and things like that. Did you have trouble in school? Did you excel in certain areas and not others? Because I know that's one of the things that happens a lot.
Yeah, well, I excelled in school. I was very intelligent. I could get A's and B's with a very little book study. Um, and as partying became more and more important, and school became less and less important.
What age are we talking about?
Right around sophomore, junior, senior year of high school is when I really started missing a lot of school. And my GPA suffered, um, and basically drugs became the most important thing in my life. But I was always, pretty well accepted in the social arena of school because of the drugs.
So drugs help you bond with other people.
Yeah, they gave me the connection and acceptance that I needed.
A
Drugs,
lot of, no, you go
drugs,
first.
drugs actually empowered me until I became so disempowered, I had to let go.
Okay. Do you now, as far as your friends, did you know if any of them had trauma? Did you happen to gravitate towards one person versus another in your search for connection?
Um, well, in my intimate relationships, that's of course where if you don't address your childhood trauma, it will be addressed in your intimate relationships. So
Elaborate on
yeah,
that a little bit.
well, I think that we naturally gravitate towards the people that pull us out of the shadows. They mirror what is unhealed within us.
So we basically look at people that can help heal our wounds.
Yes, exactly. Now, this is absolutely important as far as children are concerned. And that's why we pass, I believe, our trauma onto our children, because it is our children that reflect back to us what we are missing, the unconscious, what we're lacking, what we're hurting. And that's why we harm them,
Mhm.
because this is what is unhealed in us. They pull out what is unhealed in us. My 5-year-old daughter is my greatest guru.
Yeah.
Absolutely, she's my best teacher.
No, kids are an amazing thing. Kids are an
Yeah,
amazing thing. And one of the things you have to love about children is they're honest. Like you
yeah,
ask them, when you ask them an opinion on something, because obviously all kids lie about little things, but if you ask their opinion on something, they don't have any thoughts except what they feel at the moment. Like they're not thinking, well, what are they going to think if I say this? What do they think if I'm going to say that? They're not worried about what people are going to think. They just say what's on their mind.
yeah. They don't have all the conditioning and the programming yet, so
Exactly.
they're very authentic.
Exactly. That's a
Um,
great word, authentic.
yeah, and I think that really touches on, you know, becoming again as a child, in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, to use a Christian quote there. But there's something to that, to reconnect with the innocence of the child. I'm doing a lot of, obviously, inner child work right now. In ACOA or ACA, they
What's
refer
that?
adult children of alcoholics.
Okay.
They have a big red book, which is much more trauma informed. It's much more current. They talk about reparenting yourself. Yeah, the aspect of getting in touch with that child who was unsafe and who developed all these survival techniques in order to survive, and really going back in your mind and reparenting that parts of yourself that had to fracture in order to survive and be safe. And that's through internal family systems work. I don't know if you're familiar with IFS work, but that's a very important piece too.
No, explain a little bit about what IFF, what is it?
It's called internal family systems work.
Okay.
They work with what's called family constellations, parts work. When we experience trauma in our childhood, our personalities fracture, and we develop these personality traits which help protect us. So internal family systems work really helps to separate those parts that each need to be healed and addressed as we walk through life and all the trauma that's happened over a period. Because not only did I experience trauma in my childhood, but I've experienced trauma through my whole life, particularly as a result of addiction. When I was 19, of course, I started getting involved in the criminal justice system. And by the time I was 25, I entered prison for 10 years as a result of an armed robbery of a bank. So, in my desperation, out of this dope sickness where I had to get well, I went into a bank with a gun and robbed the teller and stole a car. Went off on the run to Nashville, Tennessee. Got arrested out there, flown back to Richmond, and got sentenced to 10 years in prison. So you're talking about not only not being able to function in the world, but also a criminal justice system that does not understand addiction, that does not understand the disease, that does not wrap you in this blanket of safety and love and understanding and compassion that we need, but throws you into an environment of more trauma and more violence.
So what was the age you first started using?
Like I said, 12, the
Oh, that's right. You
alcohol.
said 12.
Yeah, 18, 19 is when I was introduced to heroin, and that became my drug of choice for the next 25 years, intravenous use.
So when you graduated high school, what kind of stuff were you doing after that? I know, so you were doing the heroin. What kind
Yeah,
of thing? Did you have a job during all this? Did you do anything as far as like what were you doing with your life?
as far as when I left college, when I got kicked out of college,
Yeah.
um, my life became just a series of survival from one moment to the next, from the next $20 to the next. whatever I had to do in order to get my fix, of course, that's what I did. So most of my life was on the streets, stealing and hustling and doing whatever I had to do. you know,
Yeah.
you it
What
was
kind of hustles were you doing?
mostly like little petty boost and return shit, stealing stuff out of stores and returning it and, whatever.
Whatever you needed to do.
Yeah, yeah, you know how it is.
Oh yeah. No, I know the feeling. I was a little bit of a self-sufficient alcoholic and drug addict. So I always kept the jobs. That's how I fueled my addiction. I needed that money to get the next fix, you know?
Yeah, I tried to keep jobs, of course, and my dad enabled me for a while. He, owned a little construction business. So used him as long as I could until he got tired of it.
What kind of stuff did you get tired of when you were working there? What were you doing? Or I guess maybe what weren't you doing?
I mean, I was always a pretty good hard worker. I had pretty good ethic, but it was, always the drugs, the needing for money. When I was sick, of course, I couldn't show up to work. Um, so that type of crap. Um, Now, this is also something that leads me into another topic. I think that's very important is a lot of us suffer a deep father wound, okay? Because as a result of my father not being taught how to love and nurture, you know, my father was not available. I don't remember a hug or him telling me he loved me my entire childhood. He was my baseball coach growing up, Little League, you know, but because his father, he was the result of his mother was a prostitute, and he didn't get the love he needed. So he didn't understand how to love. His love was transactional. His love was conditional. His love was materialistic. He's providing, he's sacrificing everything thing he can in order to support the boys and the family. And, as a result of that, he thinks that's good enough. So now, as far as the healing work, um, let me just tell you this. It was about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was having this experience where I was addressing this deep father wound, and it was a very real, visceral experience I was having in my body. See, healing work for me is takes place through the body. It's a somatic experience. The 12 steps are amazing, but a lot of it is just mostly head work. How the big book talks about the spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. Well, that lived experience, that healing process comes through the body. Okay, trauma is trapped in the body. So if we don't practice some type of somatic experience and healing and meditation, and there's amazing stuff out there now, a lot of this is very new. So I'm a big proponent of this. So as a result of doing that type of work, getting in touch with the feelings, like I was in so much pain that I literally couldn't breathe, and I was holding on to a tree, just trying to keep myself grounded. I was so choked up with tears and pain that I almost couldn't breathe. And I held on to this tree, and I reached out to a friend, and she helped to kind of walk me through it. And I was able to let go. And then that day, I reached out to my father. It had been years since we had even talked. And I texted him. I said, Dad, I miss you, and I'd like to meet for breakfast if you're open to it. And he said, give it a few more years.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Um,
So
so
obviously your relationship with him wasn't the best at that time.
well, yeah, this is just a few months ago.
Yeah.
So he's still trying to play that tough love angle, you see. And this is a trauma response. He's trying to keep himself self safe because I've obviously hurt him a lot. When you steal from your father, that is obviously a very big hurt.
Yeah. It's a
And
lot of
it takes,
pain.
yeah. And if you don't know how to walk through that and process that, you can really hold on to it and continue to poison yourself. So now he's sitting in this huge mansion in this affluent neighborhood, $1 million house. He owns 20 rental properties and absolutely miserable and alone, you know. So what all I can do is plant seeds, you know. I can plant these little seeds. I can put little, you know, effort, little spurts of light out there, and hopefully these seeds will grow. And one day they will bloom into something beautiful. Now he's 70 years old, so time is of the essence. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
these things sprout pretty soon. And that way, when he leaves his body, I can be there for him and allow him to pass with very little regret.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother, when I got home from college, when I got kicked out, and I got home and she was dying of cancer. I never saw somebody die in so much pain with so much peace. And so she planted the seed for me. She was in hospice in home in her deathbed, and I was going into the refrigerator and pulling up her morphine medication and shooting up that in the morning. And when my father came down and told me to come say goodbye to your mom, I went up there and kissed her on the forehead, and her body was cold and stiff by then. And I walked into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I said, "Can you cuss on this pod? Is it okay to cuss?"
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I looked in the mirror and I said, "Cry, motherfucker, cry. Why aren't you crying?" Like I couldn't even feel the sadness that I was supposed to feel watching my mother die. I'm the baby of three boys. I was overly loved by my mother and underly loved by my father. And I just could not feel the pain. And
Do you know
that's
why
how,
that was?
yeah, of course, that's how numbed out I was with heroin's the greatest painkiller known to man.
Yeah.
So now in recovery, and trying to heal and not pass on this trauma, I have I have got to get in touch with those feelings and walk through those emotions and that pain and grieve. Grieving is a huge healing process and critical for recovery. It's not A lot of us feel shame around grieving, I think, too. We're raised, especially particularly men, not to cry. That's what my dad used to say: suck it up, be a
Yep.
man. That type of toxic masculinity bullshit. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, who's a depth psychologist, and I mean, Holly, I guess I could plug his name, is
Yeah.
David Bedrick. He's really good for healing work. So I said, "David, like, when is the onion not an onion anymore? Like, I keep peeling back all these layers and I just keep finding more and more." And he said, "Well, I guess when all the tears are gone, never."
It's a great response.
Yeah. It's seeds of truth like that that really just keep me inspired each day to keep moving forward. And a good friend of mine last night, we were having a very in-depth discussion about homophobia as a result of the sexual trauma I experienced as a child through a male relative, at the tender age of 10, 11 years old. Now I have this phobia of gay people. I can't get rid of it. I have this triggered response where, get away from me. I don't like you. You're not a safe person. So I have to work through that stuff too.
It's a conditioned response.
Exactly. So, these are the types of things that I'm working through, that I need to be aware of if I want to be a healthy person that can engage in healthy relationships and be a positive force of recovery. There are a lot of people in the rooms that are not healthy because they haven't addressed the problem. It's all, it's all a head game. I played that head game for years. It started in 2012 when I had my spiritual awakening with my sponsor, who worked with me through the big book. I got all the jargon down, memorized the big book. As an autistic person, I get hyper focused on stuff, and I get fixated on recovery, and I eat it and drink it and breathe it 24 hours straight, listen to the thousands of speakers and talkers and spiritual teachers and read all the books I can. And I become this master talker of spirituality, but it means nothing because I haven't really done the work.
Yeah, pretty much the point you're saying is there's two different things that's separate: recovering and actually going into a spiritual recovery as well. Because getting sober doesn't mean that you're addressing the problem.
Right.
That does not mean, some people think, oh, I'm sober, I took care of all my problems. No, you took care of the one problem, which was substance abuse or compulsion, if you're like a gambler or sex addict and your compulsive acts. But stopping those and stopping drugs and alcohol does not mean you're better in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
Yeah. Let's frame it this way. Drugs, obviously, and alcohol, was the solution to my problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The solution. I needed connection. I needed acceptance. I needed power. That's what drugs and alcohol gave me. That was my solution. You take away that solution, what are you left with? What,
Yourself.
what, what do you have to stand on?
Nothing but yourself.
Nothing. You've got nothing to stand on but your ideas, all your programming and all your conditioning and all your unhealed trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the critical question, is where am I on my spiritual journey? Where have I been? And where am I going? And the answers aren't as important as the energy which drives the questions themselves. To always be a seeker, to always continuously unfold and discover on the crest of God's creation, what healing and presence is. Like, there is no other purpose as far as in my body and heart and soul than to discover this truth that we are here to. This is what the 12 steps did for me. Okay, the 12 steps pointed me in what I needed. Does that make sense? That's all the 12 steps did for me. They point me to what I need and a healthy connection and solution to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure that's what the whole point was, to bring you to a certain end point where it's focusing your energy, saying if you keep focusing it on this way, in this path, your end point is sobriety. So I mean, it kind of sounds like your compass was off and this helped you find true north.
Yeah, the 12 steps, like when you listen to Dr. Bob, he says that, it comes down to two words. He can sum it up: love and service. So it's about, first of all, love, the concept of love, because you can't really be in selfless service without coming from the heart. So first of all, how do I get in touch with my heart? How do I heal all this pain in my heart? That's the first question, the vital question. And take that medicine, take that pain and that suffering and transform it into grace by getting in touch with the healing work that needs to take place. That was probably my biggest lesson over the last month or so, is that all of the suffering has really been grace. Because the medicine is in the wound. Have you ever heard of the term the wounded healer?
No, I have not.
Okay. Matt Licata, unbelievable healer, depth psychologist. Jeff Brown, amazing work. I'm talking about embodied, healed men with the wisdom and the ability to be a container to hold safe space for men, to be a healthy, positive, masculine force in the world, not patriarchal, misogynistic, toxic masculinity, but somebody that is safe, that it can embrace and balance with the feminine that the world so desperately needs on Mother's Day. Mother Earth. Look at what we're doing to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Our own mother. We're desecrating and raping her because of the patriarchal, toxic masculinity.
So what are you doing nowadays to keep sober? What is your plan of attack? What do you do as far as your daily routine?
Well, I'm in a recovery house. So I have support and structure. I have a sponsor that I talk to. I have a support network. I go to meetings. I have a home group. I do all those things, but I also do a tremendous amount of healing work that I've been talking about and advocating for. Right now I'm passionate about. There's a project called Compassionate Prison Project, where they go into prisons and they hold circles of safe space for convicts to come forward and tell their stories and open their hearts. These are the type of things that I'm passionate about. I also, very important for me to really be able to live in my gifts and express my creativity. I do that through music, through writing, dancing, all kinds of stuff.
It's good to have hobbies especially when you're first sober, because I know for me, I was actually just talking about this in my last episode, where I didn't know what I was going to do without drugs. Like, when I went to rehab, I said, when you get out, what are you going to do? Because you did everything high or drunk for the past 20 years. You know,
Yeah.
that was a
And
thought that I had that was like, what the hell am I going to do? So I also do what you did. This is a major thing for me as far as hobby and staying busy. That this is a major thing for me.
yeah, you're also bringing up a good point for me to address, is that a lot of what I'm saying, of course, is like recovery 2.0. You know, when you first get into recovery, all those basic simple needs, of course, have to be met. You know, of course, number one, don't pick up. Of course, if I could have done that, I would have done that a long time ago.
Yeah,
I've always hated that. Don't use no matter what. I use no matter what. How the
exactly.
hell am I? Yeah. So, I hate that advice. But as far as getting involved in meetings, 90 and 90, or 180 and 90, whatever you got to do in order to not use, and whatever it doesn't matter what it is, hold on to that, and hold on, and throw yourself into the herd, the pack. Like I look at it as like, when you watch those wild animal kingdom, like National Geographic, and you see the lions and they run up on the gazelles, and of course it's always the one that falls off the pack that the lion attacks and gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically it's the one that can't run the fastest or is hurt a little bit or something. So the ones that are in the middle of that pack are safe. That the ones that stay with the herd. And I look at recovery a lot like that. Surround yourself with good, positive, recovering people. You really need to get a level of discernment, as far as a lot of it is like very, you feel it in your gut, when you meet somebody, whether that spark of light is in their eye, you know, that are really talking the talk and living the deal. And these are the type of people that I try to gravitate towards.
Well, that's the fourth pillar in our program. We have four pillars that is our foundation. The fourth one is community.
Yeah, community is huge. And that's what I've been seeking my whole life, is safe community. Community equals connection, and connection is the opposite of addiction.
I like that. It's a good saying.
Yeah.
So, getting towards the end here, what advice would you have for people listening and watching?
Oh, I don't know if I want to give any advice. I, I have my experience, and my experience, my strength, and my hope. My experience has been that life was really painful and tough. And I was raised by misinformed people. The basic text says that. We were raised by misinformed people. And there's something deep within my makeup that cries out for chaos and confusion, you know, and I have to understand why. Why am I medicating this pain? Where is this pain coming from? You know, so when I get into recovery and I get into step work, that I believe is probably the best question that fuels the passion of, the flame of recovery in my spirit, is why the pain and how to heal it. you know how do I process and walk through this stuff and become a whole, authentic, vulnerable, human being that feels safe in a world and accepted that I never did before, without drugs, without having to douse myself in chemicals, you know and one thing at a time. you know it's a process. Recovery is a process. 10, 11, and 12, continue, improve, practice. Continue to take personal inventory. Sought through prayer. I would actually kink the 11th step a little bit because we're in 2022. Sought through embodied prayer and meditation. Really getting in touch with the body and the trauma that's trapped and stored in there. That's what keeps us trapped in the past. And as you begin to heal this stuff, what it does is it rockets you into the present moment. And they talk about the fourth dimension. I'm talking about the fifth dimension, okay? I'm talking about living fully embodied, present, and aware. Not Eckhart Tolle's power of now. That's a lot of spiritual platitudes in the mind. I'm talking about deep human connection through the body of feelings and emotions, getting in touch with that and walking through and healing those parts. Then I am a true loving force in this world. And I can be of maximum service because you can't give away something you ain't got. So if you got a sponsor that's walking you through these 12 steps, be careful and make sure that they've done the work and that they are a living example of recovery, of true recovery,
Yeah, that's important. If you're gonna have someone, I don't want to say lead the way, but help guide you in a certain direction, you got to make sure they're on point with what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it's hard to find, and I understand, but the fact that we have social media now and everybody's connected, which of course can be an addiction in and of itself, which of course it's designed that way. But it does give us a platform to connect with some good people. I've connected with some amazing people all around the world who are living examples of what recovery and healing work can do.
Yeah, Addicts Anonymous it's for now all virtual. We are working on some in-person meetings up in Manitoba, but everything's virtual, and I've met some great people. I have people that run my group with me that I've never met in person, but I trust them. When we become a 501c3 nonprofit, I'm going to need board members, and they're most likely going to be it. It's amazing the technology where if you need something, there is usually something available.
Yeah. Yep. And it's really beginning to spread the message, that the world really needs right now. That we don't have to keep living this way. We can break the cycle. It's happening. Like I can feel it. I see it. I'm experiencing it. And I'm connecting with a lot of brothers and sisters that are experiencing the same thing. And I'm really grateful for this platform and the opportunity to get the message out there and just to share my experience, strength, and hope. Hopefully it can be a seed for somebody else.
No, this has been a great interview, and I certainly think this will be.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So did you have anything else at all that you wanted to add?
No, I think I'm out of words.
Think you're out of words. All right. Sounds good. So for everyone watching, if you like what you heard and saw, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe so you can see when more videos get uploaded. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Facebook. Check us out there. And that's all we have for today. So until next time.